Okay, so sensory and perceptual development, they go together. Sensation. This is a reaction that occurs when information interacts with the sensory receptors. Something from out here comes into here. So like waves of pulsating air are collected by the outer ear and transmitted through the bones of the inner ear to the auditory nerve. So again, air comes from the outside, goes into the outer ear, goes through those bones in the inner ear to the auditory nerve. That is the sensation. It's something happening outside of you coming into your senses, in this example, into your ear. The sensory receptors, the eyes, the ears, the tongue, the nostrils, the skin. The perception is the interpretation of what was sensed. And these are two different things. Sometimes we kind of conflate them, but they are two different things. Those airwaves that came in, that's the sensation, but your interpretation of them can vary. So examples of this perception would be interpreting those airwaves that contact the ear as noise or as musical sounds. Interpreting light that's transmitted to the retina as a particular color, pattern, or shape. And again, that could vary on a person based off of their experiences, based off their biology, all kinds of things, their culture. On the ecological view for sensory and perceptual development, according to this view, we directly perceive information that exists in the world around us. Perception brings people in contact with the environment in order to interact with it and adapt to it. So to kind of repeat that, perception brings people in contact with the environment in order to interact with it and adapt to it. As an example, let's say you see a ball coming in the air. It's going to come towards your head. You need to be able to duck. And so there's a lot of things that are going on there for you to be able to do that. You have this sensation of sight. You see the ball and it is moving towards you. And so you have to be able to perceive that accurately and make the physical adjustments to get out of the way of it. Affordances are opportunities for interaction offered by objects that fit within our capabilities to perform activities. I know that's very wordy. Here's an example. A pot that you cook in. You can cook in that pot, but it can also be something to bang on. So for a while, Leif would take our pots out of the drawers, out of the cabinets, and he would bang on them. He'd get a wooden spoon and bang on it. And I'd keep putting them up. And one day he's like, "Where's my drum?" It's like, it's not the drum, it's the pot. And what was really weird is I'd actually already bought him a drum. So he preferred that pot to that drum at that time. So going back to that affordances, for him, that pot isn't something to cook in. He doesn't know how to cook, but he does know how to bang on a drum. And so that's how he is going to use that object. On the development of visual perception, at birth, the nerves, the muscles, the lens of the eyes are all still developing. Newborns really cannot see things that are far away. And I have an example of this on a different slide here. So yes, this is what a person looks like to a 1 month old. Infants do show an interest in human faces soon after birth, and they can perceive certain patterns. Related, infants' color vision gradually improves during the first months of life. When they are first born, here, their vision, if you have good vision, it's 20/20. Theirs is 20/240 is what their vision is here. And this is at 2 months, at 3 months, and then by 1 year old, it's pretty close to what we have as an adult. Experience is necessary for color vision to develop normally. And they show it's a pretty famous experiment on infants' visual perception. They would show these different stimuli, and then they would record how long a kid would want to look at that stimuli. And they definitely preferred to look at faces over just a blank circle. And they did prefer patterns over just colors. The point being, there's several points there, but one of the points is that they definitely have a preference for looking at faces. You're born with that innately. Most people are anyways. Okay, a little bit more on visual perception development. Perceptual constancy allows for infants to perceive their world as stable. So the sensory stimulation, it may be changing, but the perception remains constant. So they go through a couple here. Size and shape constancy. So for the size constancy, recognition that an object remains the same even though the retinal image changes as you move it toward or away from the object. So if you have a ball and you move it further away, they're able to understand that it's still the same size. With the shape consistency, this is recognition that an object remains the same shape, even though its orientation to it may change. So like a square is going to be a square, a circle is going to be a circle. Babies as young as 3 months show some size constancy and have shape constancy for regularly shaped objects. So maybe objects that are like an octagon, that may be a little bit more difficult for them to figure out. A couple of other things going on at this time. Beginning at about 2 months of age, infants develop the ability to perceive partially occluded or hidden objects as a whole. So they give you an example here, like if they see this ball and if they see it partially behind something else and they only can see half of the ball, they understand that the full ball is there. Basically, what they think is that learning, experience, and self-directed exploration via eye movements appear to play key roles in the ability to understand occluded objects. Children may have depth perception as well. They may be able to perceive depth, and they've done this with the visual cliff experiments. You may have heard of this. Basically, they put a piece of glass here, and so they're supposed to walk across this surface, but they can see that there's a huge drop-off. And so some of the babies don't want to walk across it, and what they say, some scientists say, is that the babies have depth perception. They realize they would fall down, and so they don't do it. They don't know exactly how early depth perception develops, but they do say that infants have used binocular cues to develop by about 3 to 4 months of age. The one thing about the visual cliff experiments, some people are not as sold on this, and they think it's more about social referencing. And so they think that, so if they have the parent over here and they're calling the kid over, that perhaps the parent is giving off some type of a social cue that the kid is picking up, that they're supposed to be concerned about walking over this visual cliff. You could go and look at the research and see what you think about it. Visual perception continues to develop in childhood, and they become increasingly efficient at detecting things like boundaries between colors. Give Life a crown right now, try to have him draw within the lines. It's not going to happen. They become better at this at about 3 to 4 years of age. Many children are farsighted, so unable to see things close up as well as far away. By the time kids enter kindergarten, though, most children can focus their eyes and sustain their attention effectively on objects that are close up. All right, that's the visual development. We're going to get into hearing development in the next set of slides.